it is great to be joined by our guest. Sean Green does amazing work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And Sean, it's always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, what's happening, Greg? Good to chat. We were just talking a little playoff basketball before. Kind of a crazy ending there. I was worried. I was on the T-Wolves +8. Was worried that when it went to OT, they might blow the game there.
Yep, that was a little bit hairy. The Timberwolves are unable to get the job done for the outright win, but the under, it is able to survive overtime. And if you had the +8, +7.5, insert your number here with the Minnesota Timberwolves, it gets there as the Lakers win 108-102. So unless if you took the very, very immediate opener of the Lakers laying 5.5 points, you're unable to get there in that spot. But how do you view this Western Conference playoff? Because now it is going to be the Lakers against the Memphis Grizzlies. And the biggest question mark for me is whether or not any of these top seeds can really fall, just because nobody in the Western Conference has been able to win a game on the road this year. And that's really the biggest takeaway for me, because the only team that is more than one game above 500 on the road this year in the West is the Sacramento Kings. And that's the biggest reason why I could see perhaps a little bit of chalk in the Western Conference.
Yeah, no, it's weird in that it does feel like it's wide open because there's not one dominant team. But to your point, yeah, it's tough to imagine these underdogs going out on the right. It just feels like the conference is down in general, which creates opportunity for some underdogs if they can pull it off. But it's tough to imagine a scenario where they go on the road. I mean, you mentioned the Sacramento Kings. I mean, the Warriors have been horrible on the road, but maybe if any team can flip a switch in the playoffs, it might be this Warriors team. And, Sacramento obviously struggles a bit with defense. They kind of finished the end of the season a little cold there. And even Denver, like, they took the foot off the gas. I think they were like 3-7 in their last 10 to end the season. They didn't necessarily need to go hard. It'll be interesting to see if they can just kind of turn on the switch there. Meanwhile, the Lakers have finished the season strong. They didn't look great against this T-Wolves team for a big portion of the game. Got a friendly whistle there in the second half, but I mean, if the Lakers stay healthy with Anthony Davis, with LeBron James, and with some of their role players playing the way they have, I think they're kind of an interesting a dog even against Memphis. So we'll see.
Yep, we certainly shall see, as I think that the West is going to be one of the hardest conferences to handicap in quite some time when it comes to the playoffs. And we are going to be seeing one of those Western Conference play-in games on Wednesday with the Pelicans taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this is another one of those games that's hard to handicap, because you're finding the Pelicans anywhere between 5 and 5.5 point favorites, with the total between 228.5 and 226. As we do the show, as a matter of fact, the total is being pile-driven downward. I think that a lot of people saw what we saw in the first two playing games, and they're thinking, man, things are tightening up a little bit more in the postseason, and I cannot disagree with them there. But how do you view this game? Because the best player out there on the floor, I feel like, belongs to OKC and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But the Pelicans, they did this last year where without Zion Williamson, things were rough to start out with, but they peaked right around April this time in the play-in tournament.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's two sides, and I think you nailed both sides. I'm going with Oklahoma City and the points at 5.5. It feels like they can just hang around in this game at the very least. They definitely have the offense to compete against New Orleans, and I don't know. I feel like at some point Zion, they figured out ways to win without him, but I think he's got to be a little bit of a distraction for that team, right? I mean, he said, he had a quote today where he feels healthy. He's healthy enough to play, but he doesn't know if he can do Zion-like things. So he doesn't know if he's going to be hesitating when he cuts, and he doesn't want to go out there. It's like, come on, dude, this is playoff basketball. You're supposed to love playing basketball. What are you doing? Meanwhile, this OKC group is a pretty scrappy bunch, and you're giving them 5.5 points with that offense. I think at the very least, this feels like a one-score game. So I'm taking the points here.
I can't blame you there. And with the underdogs on Tuesday, we saw both of them be able to come through. And I feel relatively solid about this one as well with the underdog, with the Chicago Bulls taking on the Toronto Raptors. Raptors are in between 5 and 5.5 point favorites, with the total right around 213 to 214.5. This is another total that is getting pile-driven downward as we do this conversation. But I just take a look at the Toronto Raptors, and there's not really been a lot that has impressed me too much about them this year. able to say the same thing about the Chicago Bulls, but with the Bulls, I do think that they're going to be able to do a relatively okay job on the glass, and if they're able to hold up on the glass, I do think that they're able to make this a 1 to 2 possession game.
Yeah, I mean, I see the logic there. I'm actually going with the Raptors laying 5, but if I had to pick between the two games, I like OKC and the points better. To me, Toronto against the spread is still a pretty decent team at home. 25, 15, and 1 ATS this season at home. They feel like a little bit of a different team, and you're talking about home road splits. Chicago, nothing great on the road ATS. I think this is a decent spot for the Toronto team. I'm worried the number has gotten like a hair too high. But yeah, I'm on Toronto here laying the 5.
Yeah, it should be very interesting to gauge both of these play-in games, but I just take a look at whoever wins these two games, and I do not think that they're going to be any sort of a threat in the NBA playoffs. As a matter of fact, I think that there's a good chance that whoever wins these two games, they might end up falling to the teams that lost on Tuesday as well. But are there perhaps maybe a lower-seeded team or two that you do take a look at in terms of playoffs and you feel like they could be able to win a series or two, provide a little bit of plus money on a series price? Because I know that we were talking a little bit about the Lakers before. The team that I just still go back to is the New York Knicks in that 4-5 matchup against Cleveland, because I do think that Cleveland has their numbers a bit overinflated right now with how they've played against lesser competition versus how they've played when they've had to perform in those step-up games.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think the Knicks certainly can surprise some people. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, Greg, and I'm going to be honest. I don't think they lose, but I am worried that the Sixers net series could be a little closer than I would prefer. I don't think they outright win. And then obviously the Warriors, they're going to be a favorite in the series against the Kings. I would, you know what? Moving back over to the West, I think the Clippers against the Suns is kind of interesting. Now, obviously, the Suns, they didn't lose a game once they brought in Kevin Durant. But if you're talking yourself into an underdog, I think the playoff experience of Kawhi Leonard might be able to carry this Clippers team to an upset victory here in the West. I think they're kind of interesting on a series side. And I haven't seen the series price yet for the Lakers Grizzlies, but coming back to that,
when it comes to that series as well, I'm trying to take a look at it because this one just went final. But that said, I do think that you are probably going to be able to get a little bit of value there as well. And I think that with just the entirety of the playoffs, it is going to be fascinating to see what happens with that Suns versus Clippers series, just because you mentioned it. With the Suns, they didn't lose with Kevin Durant out there on the floor, but I do have just my question marks in general with this Suns team because they haven't played a lot together, and when you face off against better competition, I think that that's something that could go very much awry, and who knows if Kevin Durant is going to be able to stay healthy for the entirety of the playoffs too.
Yeah, I mean, he got injured twice so far this season. I mean, if I'm the Clippers, I'm talking to the mop guy over at the crypto.com arena and saying, hey, if you miss a couple spots, no one's going to get upset. Maybe we can get Durant out for a couple more games here. I know the Clippers, they haven't played together a bunch because they're so busy resting, but certainly a well-rested Kawhi Leonard, you could imagine him going on a run here with this team and upsetting the Suns. So I think that one's kind of a fun one to look at. Now, obviously, the Suns have a tremendous amount of talent. You have Chris Paul, but Chris Paul has choked away a number of playoff series, and Kevin Durant is coming off a playoff. He got swept last year against the Celtics. So I think them getting knocked out in round one, while certainly would be surprising, I think there might be a little bit of value here on the Clippers as a surprise series win.
And I have found a series price in terms of Grizzlies versus Lakers. Lakers are at plus 105. That's not a lot of value, in my opinion. I'm not sure if you agree/disagree. I will hit this on the flip side because I was expecting this to be a little bit higher. I'm actually seeing this go to plus 110 as I do this. So perhaps someone was listening to me live and they were like, yeah, I agree with you. There's not a lot of value there. We were wondering what that series price was going to be for the Lakers versus the Memphis Grizzlies series. And we got it literally with about a minute or two left in our previous segment. And right now, we're seeing the Lakers at a plus 110, the Memphis Grizzlies at minus 130 at DraftKings. As a matter of fact, it's already moved 5 cents as the Lakers were a plus 105. And not sure what you're thinking about this series price, but I thought it was going to be much more demonstrative. I think that there's either value here on the Memphis Grizzlies, or if you like the Lakers to win the series, you might as well just be taking every single game individually, because I just don't think that the series price offers you a lot of value if you like the Lakers.
No, not at all. Certainly a plus 110 to start off the series. I mean, I think if you want to back the Lakers, wait and see how those first two games go. Because if they lose both of them, you might be able to get a decent live price there. But you're right. I mean, if you like the Lakers, just play them on the money line, and you can probably put together a decent mechanical parlay there, because they're going to be underdogs. You know, what the opening line's 3.5. So you're already, if they win game one, you're getting a better price than even the series. So yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, I was curious to see where that one was going to be shaking out. I certainly didn't think it was going to be between a plus 105 to a plus 110. I thought you were going to be.
I thought we were going to get a little higher, and then I was going to be interested. And then, you know, we were talking a bunch off air. The Clippers at 4-1 is, to me, that is just worth rolling the dice, considering there's so many question marks on the Suns. I mean, I get it. They've looked good and it's worked in the regular season, but this team hasn't played any crunch time minutes together or any real meaningful basketball yet. So I think so much can go wrong here. And yeah, the Clippers experience is still pretty good. So at 4-1, I think that's a little crazy.
And I'm not sure what you think about this, but I just subscribe to the theory of these teams that they look to build their teams mid-season. They make these blockbuster deals. I just want no part of them to be able to win a title, because last time we really saw in the NBA a team make that big move to be able to net them a championship, you have to go back to 1995 in the Clyde Drexler deal, and there are teams every single year that they try it, and every single one of them, it hasn't even worked out. I could see it if it was maybe a move that they made prior to the season, but I think chemistry still matters, and even though the Suns have looked solid in the few games that Durant has been out there, a lot of these games were against lesser competition as well.
Yeah, no, and again, everyone's tanking to try and get Wembanyama. I mean, you had the Dallas Mavericks opting out of the playoffs, so
which was deplorable, by the way.
Yeah, that was really, really. Could you imagine if the NFL, they're like, all right, this is a must-win Week 17 game to get in the playoffs. All right, we're gonna rest our starting quarterback, or no, actually, we're gonna have a quarterback come out in the second quarter for a couple pass plays, because he might get the passing yardage record or whatever it was. That was crazy, and they almost won the game. Just kind of shows you in the NBA, and you brought up a great point there. I mean, think of the Miami Heat, that super team that they put together back in the day. That first year, they didn't win at all. Like, even them having a full year, and they put the team together in the offseason, even having that full year, they still didn't win the championship. It wasn't until the second year when they got it done and they got the ring. So again, like, the Suns aren't surprising anyone. They're a massive, massive favorite. And again, like, even if he has to win 16 games in the playoffs, right, to win the championship, that would be double the amount of games Kevin Durant played for the Suns in the regular season. So there's a lot of variables here, and yeah, I think it's crazy the price that they're at. I certainly see the case for it, but not at that price.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.